Dr. Death, Part 4. A story by E.B.'s Heart. They didn't know that he had a secret exit behind his office, so he escaped immediately he got into his office. The news of what Dr. Obum did circulated the whole country, and no one could explain the mystery behind it or how he was able to turn his patient into a skeleton. People even suspected cultism, and Obum's family and kinsmen denounced him, calling him an abomination and a disgrace. Then, many years later, Obum walked into a new hospital and said, "Hello, I am the new resident doctor, Dr. Obum," he said, smiling before the nurse at the reception. The nurses started drooling over him. "He is so handsome and young," one of the nurses said. Obum, who looked like a 30-years-old man, but was almost 150 years, presented himself as a United States-based experienced medical doctor. And since the hospital advertised for a United States experienced doctor, he applied and presented all the certificates he mysteriously got from a university in the United States. Just 1 week at the hospital, the deaths began. First it was a young mother who just gave birth, and Obum said she died of excessive bleeding. Then a child, and another patient. Before 1 year since Obum joined the hospital, they recorded more death than they had recorded in 5 years since its establishment. To make matters worse, Obum hypnotizes everyone around him to be blind to his killings. So as the deaths were happening, no one pointed fingers at him. They all kept saying it was becoming too much, including him. "I am Mrs. Oken, my daughter is in the theater to have her baby," a middle-aged woman introduced herself to the nurse at the reception. "Hold on, Ma, and have a seat," the nurse directed her cheerfully. Mrs. Oken was at the hospital's reception with her son-in-law, waiting for her daughter who was having her first child. "Calm down, Joe, we have done well to bring her to one of the best hospitals in the country, so she will be fine. I also heard their resident doctor is an experienced United States medical practitioner," Mrs. Oken said to soothe her son-in-law who was so anxious. Welcome doctor, all the nurses chorused as Obum was hurriedly walking to perform the caesarean operation as he was called to come. "Are you the doctor that will operate on my daughter?" Mrs. Oken quickly blocked Obum's way. "Please take good care of her for me," she pleaded earnestly. Obum was about to respond when Mrs. Ohan looked at his faint reflection in the glass window behind him and screamed. "What is that?" she asked, pointing at Obum's reflection. Obum turned around and saw himself looking like a rotten walking corpse. He turned to Mrs. Oken, who was still screaming in terror. "What is it?" he asked, pretending not to understand why she was reacting that way. "Do not touch my daughter," she shouted and ran to her son-in-law. "Go in there and bring out my daughter, we are leaving," Mrs. Oken said repeatedly. Obum, who doesn't know the next time he will get a patient worthy of sacrificing, since their hospital was having low patronage, and he had started showing as a corpse because his payment with blood has passed its due date, quickly rushed into the theater and locked the door. He cut the woman open and drained her of all the blood in her body. After which he entered the ceiling and escaped.
Please like, share and follow for the next part.